Good evening and shalom from Galilee, from Israel. This is Amir. I know I've been giving those live updates quite frequently over the last few days, but this is because the Middle East is going through a period of that I don't remember it went through before, and this is an unprecedented crisis that is way beyond Israeli-Palestinian, Israeli-Lebanese, way beyond the Syrian. This is an all-in-all crisis across the entire Middle East right now. And the reason why it's so important is because for the first time we have the direct involvement on the ground of Russia. And that is one, if I may say, one of the catalysts of this whole thing. So let me just give you a short update of what happened in the last, I would say, 12 hours. First of all, just about a few hours ago, less than a day ago, satellite images were released of an Iranian military base that is being constructed right now, probably about 35 miles away from the Israeli border in the outskirts of Damascus. Again, this was a Syrian military base that was small, and the Iranians are right now expanding it. They're building more and more and more. And the good news is that it's not yet manned. But the bad news is that once it is completed, well, the Iranians are just going to bring people, soldiers, and they will man it. Of course, that will be a very interesting test to the Israeli sovereignty, because Israel said over and over, again and again, that we will not allow Iranian presence that close to our border. We will not allow them to settle in Syria and create a front base closer to Israel. So that's one thing that happened. The second thing that happened this morning, an unmanned flying vehicle, what I would call it a drone, I would call it a reconnaissance one. It wasn't armed with any weapon. It was flying directly towards Israel from the Golan Heights, from Syria. Now comes the interesting thing. We detected that this is a Russian drone. Now, you remember months ago, maybe more than a year ago, I told you that the Russians actually sent a drone that was Israeli made. They bought it from us. That's why we failed to detect it. And that was over a year ago, and I believe that they tested the water. That's why Israel found it very hard to understand how to retaliate and react. This time, immediately we realized this is a Russian drone, and we immediately called the Russian military presence in Syria, asking them if they're operating a drone. Needless to say, if it's a Russian drone and operated by the Russian military, we would think twice before we intercept it. We would ask them to turn it around and go back. The Russians actually declined the option or the possibility that this is a drone that is operated by them. Namely, it is a drone that the Russians must have provided either to the Syrian military or indirectly it got into the hands of the Hezbollah. We believe it could be of the Syrian military, but let's face it, if it flies towards Israel, the Syrian military has absolutely no reason to do that. If anything, it's the Hezbollah that is trying to stir up some shenanigans over on the border. So, two things. And if you remember, over the last two updates, in the last few days, I said that eventually the crisis in the Middle East with Iran and Saudi Arabia will eventually come to Israel. It's only a matter of time. What happened right now is that under the smokescreen of the tension between Saudi and Iran and the tension between North Korea and the United States, the Russians are allowing the Iranians to do literally whatever they want. And the Iranians are doing that. It's very interesting because the leader of the Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, just released yesterday a statement in a speech where he said that he believes he has the information that in exchange for billions of dollars, Israel promised, or Israel was asked by the Saudi Arabian government to attack Lebanon. Now, let me make it very clear. Israel is not talking to the Saudi regime about attacking Lebanon. We never did. If anything, we ever talked about with the Saudis, it was in the military intelligence level, and that was about attacking Iran, not Lebanon. So we did that years ago when we actually received the green light from the Saudis to use their airspace on our way to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities. It was Barack Obama that actually blocked the possibility of Israeli aircrafts going across the Arabian Peninsula on their way to destroy the Iranian nuclear program. So if anything we ever talked with the Saudis, it was about attacking the Iranian and not the Lebanese. But what happened is very simple. You see, in the Middle East, when leaders release statements, you have to look at the whole picture. Don't believe any word that comes out of their mouth, because what they do, they are actually preparing the ground and the public opinion and the world media to their next step. Now watch this. When the Hezbollah leader is telling the world that Israel was instructed by Saudi Arabia to attack Lebanon, what he actually says is this: in case Israel attack us, I just want you to know it's because the Saudis requested that. Now, what in the world would be a reason for Israel to ever come against Lebanon? It's the activity of the Hezbollah. So the Hezbollah is now buying itself an insurance policy by ways of dropping those allegations that the Saudis are perpetrating or pushing Israel to attack. Basically, what the Hezbollah is doing is they are creating a possibility, a realm in which they can operate, knowing that Israel will have to think 5 times now before it attacks, so Israel will not be blamed as if we're doing the Saudis' job. So you see, it's deception upon deception, by the way, which is a very common Muslim practice. It's called taqiyya. Deceive the world as long as it promotes a Muslim idea. Deception is allowed. Lies are not real lies if it promotes your agenda as a Muslim. So Hassan Nasrallah is deceiving the whole world, and the interesting thing is that the world is always buying it. Everything that has to do with Israel, the world will always buy the other side's opinion. So that's as far as the events of the last 12 hours. Again, one is we detected the construction of Iranian military base right about 35 miles away from the Israeli border in the outskirts of Damascus. Number 2, a Russian-made drone was intercepted today by an Israeli Patriot missile, and its debris fell on the Syrian ground, basically. But it was en route towards Israel, and we had to do that. In between, we asked the Russians, is it yours? And the Russian says, no, it's not ours. So whether the Russians lied or not, we will never know, because the drone is down. And one thing for sure, it's a Russian drone. They confirmed it, we know it. And the question is now, who in the world used it? It's not going to be any surprise to me that the Russians themselves did that, and they are denying that, because they were busted